A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, it is a period of fruitless searching. A mother seeks to quiet the endless roar of her grief and find her missing daughter, in this testament to a defiant and desperate spirit that persists within the people of Mexico. Her journey will be long and dangerous, and there is no guarantee of success, but she cannot stop, no more than any other person facing the same horrific tragedy. Ruido, also known as Noise, is a film that deals heavily with human trafficking, violence against women, police brutality, sexual assault, corruption in the government, and the trauma and grief that these events cause. This film may be a triggering experience for survivors of these horrors and the family members who have lost people to them. Please proceed according to your needs and comfort level. Hello there, and welcome back to 6 Degrees of Star Wars, the podcast where we explore all the ways George Lucas's flagship franchise surrounds us, binds us, and penetrates us in the landscape of cinema. I'm your host, Sam Marchioni, and joining me today is Ellie McConaughey.
Yep, show up for the most tearful movies you got.
Yeah, this is a heavy one. So, we're here to talk about the 2022 film Noise, or if you're going by its Spanish title, Ruido. This is a film by Natalia Beristain. I deeply hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Apologies in advance to all the various Latin American Spanish speakers who are going to hear me mangle pronunciations of their names and their language.
Mm-hmm.
Lo siento por todo.
I have to ask, because when I looked up this movie, when I volunteered for this movie, I go and look it up. What was the connection? How did it get connected to Star Wars?
Very interesting question. Ire, would you let us in on that?
Greetings, I am IER60, Star Wars Retelling Connections. Point of intersection found. This is a degree 6. Teresa Ruiz was in Luis Miguel the series with Barbara Goodson, who was in the 2008 Clone Wars series and Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales. Michael Sinterklaas, who was in Visions and Young Jedi Adventures, and Joe Achman, who was in Visions. Additional source material found. This is a retelling of the hymn to Demeter by Homer.
I didn't even know about the hymn to Demeter thing, but now that I've been told it, I can't unsee it. And it's kind of depressing me. So, Jazz, I'm aware that you're probably listening. Consider this a test run for whether or not you want this on in each retelling. Because, oh man,
I just feel like that's stretching the definition
might be, but
yeah, I get what you're saying.
But the droid has spoken, and here we follow the droid's records. Also,
yeah,
I'm slightly scared of the droid. I'm grasping at straws for humor.
Yeah.
Because this is not a funny movie.
Especially towards the back half. Half my notes are just like, man, this is bumming me out. Though I will say,
a significant portion of my notes are some variation of either a cab or fuck you.
Yeah, I will say there is a bit, one like, I don't want to say moment of joy, but like one moment of, oh, hey, that I had is there's a bit towards the middle where she like goes to talk to a sex worker, and I recognize that as Kenya Cuevas, who is a transgender activist, and I think former sex worker. I don't know, her whole...
Yeah, when the police have been notified after they've seen the truck full of dead bodies of trafficked people.
That scene...
Jesus. I will give a very, very short synopsis of this movie. We are following a mother named Julia, whose daughter Her, it's short for Gertrudis, but her daughter disappeared 9 months ago while on vacation. The police haven't found her, and so Julia decides that she's going to try and find answer herself with the help of a journalist named Abril, and she goes on the world's worst road trip across Mexico trying to find clues about what happened to her daughter. She comes in contact with a lawyer. She comes in contact with other people who are searching for their missing family members, because this is a real life problem in Mexico. The end credits say that over 90,000 people have gone missing since the war on drugs started.
Ugh.
And it's honestly like there are a lot of real people being mentioned in this movie, like real people who have gone missing. And it's like the government's against them. We see, student-led protests of young women trying to, assert themselves. There is a line at one point where, not to censor at all, they say the oppressive state is a macho rapist.
I think this is based on like real life protests that were happening around this time.
Yeah, so real issue, really hard to sit through. Fuck you, Emerald Fennell. Like, everybody on the internet is mad at you because of the Wuthering Heights thing right now, but also, like, this just makes shit like Promising Young Women seem so tame and girl bossy in comparison. Because, spoiler alert, I'm pretty sure Julia dies at the end. Like,
Yeah.
the way that the movie ends, she gets hit on the head by one of the cops who's there in riot gear. She falls to the ground. A girl with a red hood comes up and like helps her up and through the crowd, and suddenly everybody's ignoring her. And then they're in like this big open field, windswept area. The girl takes off her hood. Boom, it's her daughter. End credits. Yeah, she dead.
Yeah, that was my interpretation as well.
I'm sad.
Yeah, it's one of those movies. I was like, straining to come up with a joke. I guess my best one is like the last road trip movie I watched across Mexico was also kind of depressing. That's a Y Tu Mama Tambien, but at least, had a lot of sex in that movie.
Oh.
It's a good movie.
Y Tu Mama Tambien, on the list. Hi, Diego Luna. I've seen your ass.
You're going to see so much of him in that movie. Great movie. Anyway, it's one of those movies where like, so the comparison that kept hitting me in the face throughout, and stay with me here, audience, before you fucking come murder me. The movie that kept coming to my mind as like a comparison point is a little movie from last year called The Sound of Freedom. And like, stay with me. I'm not here to sing The Sound of Freedom's praises.
You better not be, Jesus Christ.
So one of my favorite video essays, like the last 6 months, is the Morbid Zoo's video on The Sound of Freedom. And one of the things she points out is that like the reason the guy who The Sound of Freedom is based on acts the way he does is because he wants his work against human trafficking to fulfill his personal narrative. Oh, exactly. This is what I feel like a lot. Like I've read about, real work done to undo sex trafficking. If I mention, like, if you name some of those studies that they've written about this stuff, instantly, like, you won't get beyond YouTube. They'll throw you off. It's insane. And I don't mean that in a good way. Like, no, it's deeply unpleasant reading, but like there's that shot that I really stuck with me is like halfway through the movie where she's walking through this truck that they found out in the desert full of dead women. And it's just this long, very, very painful shot. And like, it doesn't resolve anything. You go through the horror of discovery and then you don't get anything out of it. Like, that is what I feel a lot of this work is. It's crawling through open sewage to get like the tiniest victories.
Yeah, like trying to, decolonize my brain, I couldn't help as I was watching keep thinking about how the pacing of this movie is very, very slow, and how if this were an American or even a British film, it would probably be much faster paced, and we would be like having a race against the clock to save the daughter, and the daughter would be fine because, that's what Hollywood sells us most of the time. And like,
I mean, you're just describing Taken there.
Yeah, this is not that kind of a movie. Like, this is about grief. I had a mixed relationship with the number of long tracking shots and one takes focused on people's faces as they talk, because there are some moments where it's like super, super effective. Like, there's an opening scene at a support group. One character, Adriana, her actress's name is Gabriela Nunez. She gives this speech about how one of her daughters is missing. Her other daughter is an identical twin. And every time she looks at the daughter who is still there, who's pregnant, she's getting sad because she's thinking of her missing daughter, and she feels bad about how that's kind of ruining her relationship with the daughter who is still here. And I'm like, God damn, this is painful stuff. And later they visit a shelter, and there's this tracking shot going down the hall of a shelter, like looking into these rooms, and you're like, oh my god. But
I noted the one at the beginning in
some
my
longer
notes
shots
too.
where I'm just like, you're getting to be a one-trick pony with these shots, and so some of them are losing their efficacy. But then there's another one when she's with that group that goes out marching in like open spaces, and there's a shot of all of them like slowly rising above the horizon. So good.
You know, if I had to be overly reductive, which I do sometimes, the general purpose of a very long shot on a single person's face is to physically force the audience to be there with them through that emotion. You know, the final shot of Portrait of a Lady on Fire is probably my favorite. Take a shot, Ellie referenced Celine Sciamma. But like, I have that in my notes too. The one of the lady talking about how her grief is ruining her relationship, and like, I feel like it's a very effective moment of just like, yes, she's grieving, but that's also like you see that in Julia's relationship with other people. Like, there's a call she gets from her living child where he basically says like, yeah, her son, where he basically says like, I'm fucked up about this too, but you're so wrapped up in your own grief that you can't see that. And you know, that's another very long shot of her face.
There's a musical for that. Take a Shot. Sam references a musical. There's a musical called Next to Normal that is about a super dysfunctional family, and spoiler alert, part of it is that the mother is in a deep psychosis because her son is dead, but she still sees him and she's still fixated on him, which means she's not paying attention to her daughter or to her husband, really. Next to Normal is a very good musical. It hits you in the feelings, but yeah.
I did also think of the Taken comparison because you're right. There would normally be a ticking clock. You know, I think that it's been many years since I saw Taken, but I seem to recall he like literally says like, I have X number of days before she's basically gone forever. And like the big reveal, not to spoil anything, audience, not that we're about to spoil the entire movie or anything, but like the big reveal when she finally meets the guy who took her daughter, she's been dead this entire time. Like,
fuck that guy.
And for basically nothing. And like, it's
fuck
not even
that guy and his little tweeny bopper looking face.
Yeah. And like, I wonder, like, you know, obviously I'm not Mexican. I don't think I'm breaking any hearts when I say Sam isn't either. But like, I wonder how much of it is like intended as like, you know, it's clearly a movie made with an eye towards like bringing a foreign eye to the rest of to this real problem.
On that note, Netflix, fuck you for not making this available anywhere other than on your overpriced streaming platform. Like, fuck you for killing physical releases. Because paying $7 to $23 a month is not accessibility.
No, it is not. I actually have another bitch at Netflix in a moment. I will bring it up. Like, my thought was like, you know, I feel like the movie is sort of like revealing how utterly and completely complicit the police are in this stuff. Whereas I feel like a Mexican audience, that would just be like assumed, but I obviously don't know. And the complicity of the police,
I feel like it has to be assumed because, well, the fact that this got made suggests a level of permissibility within the government. Like, I don't know, maybe it was a Streisand effect where the government figured it would be worse to try and shut this down, but I don't know. It also kind of reminds me of how, like, whenever a studio releases a movie or a TV show with apparently progressive messaging, and then you remember, oh right, David fucking Zaslav runs this studio.
Yeah, my bitch to Netflix, aside from like let people see your shit, stop killing physical media, for some reason, and I cannot figure out why this keeps happening. Whenever I go to watch like something foreign on Netflix, this happened to me all the fucking time with Babylon Berlin, which is a great show. Every single time it opens up and it's like, oh, do you want to watch this dubbed? And every single time my answer is no. Why is that the default, you twerps?
I think it's the default because they expect that people aren't actually going to be watching the screen. They're going to be more listening and like having the Netflix on in the background as they cook or whatever. I'm guilty of this, but I do it with shit like Dimension 20 where, you know, you're maybe not missing as much visually if you look away from Dimension 20, unless it's a combat episode.
Or also like the TV shows I do that, which are like Seinfeld, something I already know by heart, you know.
Right. But also, it might just be that Netflix thinks that people are dumb and they don't want to read during their movies.
To briefly circle around to the subject of my podcast, you know, if you climb over the 2-inch barrier of subtitles, you will discover so many amazing movies. As someone said at some award ceremony, some local award ceremony, as he called it.
We love you, Director Bong.
His next movie comes out on my birthday.
Happy birthday.
It's not for another 6 months.
But like we see that visceral scene where Abril gets pulled off the bus, essentially getting black bagged by the government, and she's screaming her name and everyone's standing silent. Like I would at least hope that the Mexican government is not at that level anymore, but far be it from me to cast stones from my glass country.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not an expert on the Mexican political scene right now. That scene is like harrowing because you know what's happening from the word go, and like you're just like willing someone to get up and stop it, and no one does. Ugh.
Well, the sad fucking thing is, we know why they won't do it, because fucking self-preservation and everything.
Yeah, my notes are pretty thin on this one, because, like, part of it's, like, a foreign film, so I can't, like, I hate dubs, like, I can't. I ended up watching the first, like, 5 minutes of it accidentally with the dub, and, like, the disconnect between...
Well, the first 5 minutes of it, there's not a lot of speaking.
Precisely, it took me a while to realize what was happening. The disconnect between, like, someone's face and their voice kind of, like, throws me off. But also, like, so that means that I couldn't really take super detailed notes because, you know, I'm watching the movie. I got to keep my eyes on the screen. But also, like, it's an unpleasant movie to watch, but I don't think that means it's uninvolving. I was, like, riveted throughout.
Yeah, this is one of those, this film should radicalize you if you are not already radicalized kind of movies. I mean, I'm not necessarily going to say, hey, Mom, do you want to come watch this movie with me? I made that mistake bringing my mother to My Penguin Friend, because I was like, oh, feel-good movie about a man befriending a penguin. No, in the first 10 minutes you have to watch a child die and then a penguin swim through an oil spill. She was horrified.
A couple of years ago, for my birthday, my aunt decided, oh, we're going to take Ellie to see a movie. Oh, what's playing right now? Oh, Uncut Gems is playing. Let's go see that. And she walked out half an hour before the end.
Oh, no.
I will say, one of the things that's great about watching Mexican movies, like made in Mexico, is it's really nice to see Mexico shot without that fucking sepia filter every hack director puts over it.
Such a relief. And they use the skyline so effectively. Like, they have a shot where she is on the roof of a building and there's this gray storm happening overhead, and then they like push through the chain link. Oh god, that was fucking beautiful.
It's a beautifully shot film.
But also, I thought of another film that this reminds me of that might make you very happy to hear this, Ellie.
Oh boy.
This film gives me a very similar feeling to I Saw the TV Glow.
Oh, interesting. In that it was traumatizing to watch?
In that it gives me that same feeling of a knot in my stomach, and I won't go all the way to traumatized because from a place of first world privilege, etc., this is not a problem I have had to face personally, but I have this thing called empathy that I know is sometimes not in as high demand as it should be, and part of why media literacy is dead is because people refuse to look at stories where they don't automatically identify with the protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, in both I Saw the TV Glow and this, I feel fucking bad for the characters. I feel fucking bad that they're in such a miserable situation and they're trying to claw their way to any kind of closure and they don't really get it. Spoilers vaguely for I Saw the TV Glow.
Well, that was sort of the thing, like, that struck me, you know, and it is true about I Saw the TV Glow, because you get to that point where you have the moment of discovery, the shot with the, I guess, how can I be vague? The shot with the box cutter, I guess, is the vaguest way I can put it, in I Saw the TV Glow, and the reveal of what happened to her daughter in this. And then you want the resolution. What is going to happen about this? And these movies, both this and I Saw the TV Glow, are like, nope, we are ending it here. You don't get resolution. And a similar case, I saw a movie at TIFF a few months ago called Crossing, which is about she's from the Middle East and she's going to Turkey to search for her missing niece, who is missing because she was kicked out for no longer being her nephew.
Okay, so that's gay on the LA checklist. I'm going to assume long is also on there.
It wasn't long. It was only like 2 hours.
Okay.
And I mean, it wasn't even my favorite movie I saw there, but that's not the point. It's like, it's another movie which is about an older woman descending into a world she doesn't know. Only this one's a lot less horrifically unpleasant, because, like, this one's more about the ways in which marginalized people have to sort of band together to survive being marginalized. But they both also end on the note of, like, you know, a lot of these stories go unresolved. You never get that resolution. The villain is never punished. The missing niece is never found. You have to learn to live with that.
And ACAB gonna ACAB.
Both movies also ACAB gonna ACAB. And that's not, like, the most pleasant theme to have. There's an honesty to it that, I don't know, it's one of those things that can feel kind of schmaltzy if you do it wrong. I was a little nervous about her just, like, walking out of the meeting with the guy who killed her daughter right into the protest. I'm like, that's a little cheesy. But it worked for me. It worked for me as, like, a visual reminder, like, this movie is her story, but this is a national problem.
Yeah, kind of relating to that, because, again, we are both whiter than mayonnaise sandwiches on Wonder Bread being eaten by polar bears in a snowstorm. But I did notice some colorism. I did notice that our main character, Julia, is significantly lighter skinned than many of the people that we saw. And I am not so ignorant as to think that that has nothing to do with why those people are disappearing and not being found.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a clear difference between the family member support group that Julia starts in, where we have Adriana's big speech, and the women who are out in the rural areas marching to find their families through the fields and the ruins. And, like, the movie doesn't overtly draw attention to that, but if you're paying attention, you will see it. And God, it sucks. It fucking sucks that people go through this and that intersectionality makes things so much worse for some people.
I think that, like, overtly drawing attention to it, that's a very fine line to walk, especially in a movie this, I don't want to say downer, because, like, that's not exactly a movie
heavy,
this, like,
serious.
It's both heavy and serious, but that is what I'm thinking of. Like, in a movie this restrained, you know, it's a movie about a really horrible thing, but it's not, like, paced very quickly. It's not, you know, the most intense scene is right when Julia gets menaced by a car, and then Abril gets taken off the bus. But neither of those scenes happen very quickly. They are, you know, those are the movie at its most intense, and those scenes happen over the course of several minutes. Like, it's a very...
I think the protest scene gets pretty intense at certain places, but I think it's trying to keep from making the violence sensational.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, it's so underplayed that I feel like openly saying, also, there is, even in, within, obviously from the American to the Mexican side, there is a racial aspect to who gets trafficked. Uh, Spoiler alert, true crime addicted people, 99 times out of 100, if you are a suburban white person, you are not going to be who they kidnap, because you will get media attention. But also, like, I feel like saying out loud that even within Mexico there is an additional racial component to it would ruin that sort of understated, quiet element to it. They don't need to draw this much attention. Like, look how horrible it is. This person's been searching since 2010. Like, I think that just having her say, "Yeah, I've been searching since 2010," and be like almost resigned to it is more powerful in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, sad things like the fact that they have t-shirts with pictures of the people that they've lost, but it's been so long. Even if those people were alive, there's no guarantee they'd look like those photos anymore. They could have gone from being a Jake Lloyd to being a Hayden Christensen.
That was pretty good. That was a pretty good joke for this podcast. You're getting there. You're making.
I'm Jesus. Sorry. This isn't a funny movie. This isn't a movie that's good to riff.
No.
The only real laugh I got out of this is when the cop shows up and she asks what he's doing here. He answers, fixing someone else's mistake. And he asks what she's doing here. And she says, doing someone else's job. And I let out a big playground, oh!
I did get like a chuckle at the sheer absurdity of Julia standing there in the gas station waiting for the ATM for the money to bribe the police. Like, the raw absurdity of that did like get a laugh out of me. It wasn't a good laugh, but it was like, okay, that's like...
I think it's more like a haha, we're fucked kind of laugh.
Exactly. And it was like, she's also keeps fucking with her jacket because she's got the smell of the truck with all the dead people in it.
That death smell is never coming out, love.
Yep. That's one of those things that I feel like I can tell when a movie knows what it's doing with that stuff, because I feel like people who haven't been around death very much, well, not just death of people, but like death, do underestimate how bad it smells. I remember when I was like 6 or 7, when I was living in Utqiagvik, we drove past the corpse of a whale that had washed up on the beach and was rotting. And I tell you, if I could have a nightmare consisting entirely of smells, it would smell like that dead whale.
That is never a smell I have been treated to, thankfully. Yes. So I will take your word for it, but...
Consider the following, yeah. No, my point is that, like, I feel like when a movie acknowledges that, like, death smells bad and clings to you, like, I had to burn the jacket I was wearing the day I saw that. I think that that's when a movie sort of understands that, like, movies can be more or less serious about death. 75 people die in, like, Dread, but nobody gives a shit because it's an action movie, whereas, something like, I don't know, what's a good example? Breaking Bad could build an entire half season of television around one person getting shot. So movies can take death more or less serious, and I think when smell gets involved and people start visibly reacting to the smell, that's sort of like a really good example of the movie taking death very seriously.
Yeah, I mean, the way that the police officer casually mentions that the morgue hasn't worked in 7 months, I was just shuddering to think of what that would look like. And
that was, the depiction of the police in this movie is super interesting to me, because, like, there is a lot of them are extremely corrupt, but also, like, there's this sense I very much got from the police chief in that part of the movie that, like, she's at the point where she knows she could risk her life to try to stop this, but I think she's just, like, so apathetic to it at this point that she seems kind of, like, vaguely annoyed that she's being asked to deal with this,
Yeah, it's the banality of evil.
Did we mention this is a heavy fucking movie, audience?
It's kind of fucking sad that there's a point in my notes where I got unexpectedly happy that I was watching a shot in a dilapidated shelter with people who were clearly miserable, but there were puppies.
There was a puppy. It was a good puppy.
There was a brief shot of a mama dog with a bunch of puppies nuzzling up to her, and I'm like, oh, that's nice. That's nice. But there was also a point where I wrote in my notes, if anything happens to Amelia, I will lose my shit. Nothing happened to Amelia, but Amelia's mother is Abril.
Mm-hmm.
And so something kind of did happen to Amelia, and I did indeed lose my shit.
Mm-hmm. That scene, I keep going back to that scene because that's just so horrific, and the actress sells it so well. Yeah.
It's especially heartbreaking because she had a whole like monologue about why would you do this even though it puts you at risk.
I mean, like,
and she sold it. She sold the hell out of it.
She did sell the hell out of it, but also, like, when my mom was alive, she worked with Amnesty International a lot, and so you hear women who are doing, who do shit like this in Mexico or in Afghanistan, in places where, doing this kind of activism is quite frequently lethal, and it's one of the things you hear often from them is like, I don't want my daughters or my sister's daughters to go through this, so someone's got to do it.
Not to make it even more of a real world bummer, but Jesus fuck, we're seeing it right now. We're seeing it in Gaza and in Lebanon and fuck this timeline.
I'm kind of like, got a lot of thoughts swirling. I finished watching this movie at this point in the recording about an hour and a half ago.
I guess I could try to be like a little lighter about this and mention Liz. Liz was a kind of fun character. I clocked an immediate kind of sapphic vibe from her. I don't know if you got it too.
Which one was Liz? I'm trying to remember.
Liz was the student protester who took a hit off of Julia's Juul or vape or whatever that was.
Yeah, I did get that vibe.
Yeah, she seemed like a cool person. She seemed exactly like the kind of person I would have gone to college with, and the kind of person that I saw quite a bit of in the news at colleges in the last year. Y'all are hardcore. I appreciate you. And I did like that we got to see Liz again at that protest scene, and she gave Julia a hug. Because Julia needed it.
Julia did need it at that point. I liked one of the things that said at the support group is like, they finish telling their story and then the entire support group basically repeats, "You are not alone." And like, that was one of the chants at the protest. I'm like, that's a pretty good callback right there. Because like, that is the message of the protest. That's the message of all those protests.
And it actually means something, unlike other movies that have used "You are not alone" as a slogan.
Is it a Dear Evan Hansen reference, Sam?
Listen, I have been made to sing "You Will Be Found."
Man.
Those fucking "You Are Not Alones" are drilled into my soul in a way that I deeply hate.
I wish we were talking about Dear Evan Hansen right now. That's a movie I can talk a lot about. None of it's good. I do, not to spoil my opinion, audience, I do think the force is with this one, but...
To bring in another thing I liked Cass, the lawyer that Julia goes to see as a means of hoping to find... Because Cass has this huge wall of people that she's found. And so for a minute, well, more than a minute, honestly, having Cass on the case gives you hope that, well, maybe we'll at least find her. Do you see the egg that is on my face?
She basically spells out at one point that, like, we're probably not going to find her alive and is not listened to. I wonder if she was named Cassandra on purpose.
Entirely possible. Again, learning that this was some kind of him to Demeter thing, like, does kind of recolor it. I don't think Cassandra has any connection to Demeter, but, like, fuck it. The fact that the journalist's name is Abriel as in April, like, spring.
Fuck it, we ball.
I'll take it.
Yeah, exactly. I did really like that scene. I liked it in sort of like, you're watching her drive up this very long, guarded driveway to what amounts to like a castle, like a fortress. And I was sitting there going like, oh, oh, she's going to meet someone like connected to the criminal underworld. And it's just a lawyer who actually like gets shit done. That sort of like drives home immediately, like, oh, this situation is really fucked.
I for sure thought that was a trap. Like, I thought the movie
Mm-hmm.
was going to be over because she was going to get murked. And then I looked at the time and I'm like, okay, no, there's like an hour left to the movie.
Yeah.
She is not going to get murdered an hour in.
That would be a baller move, and now we're going to follow someone else. I do think, to use an example from a movie we referenced earlier, I Saw the TV Glow. I think when a director has something written down on screen in that's that large enough that you can see it, like for example, there is still time from I Saw the TV Glow. It is the director basically saying to the audience, here is a message, I need you to look at it. And so I think that the posters with all the found are like, we can do something about this, there just has to be like the will to do it.
Yeah.
I think that's why
God.
that movie ends at the protest too.
Yeah. And semi gives Julia the closure of being with her daughter again, but then you remember she has a son now, and I still can't tell whether or not she and Hare's father are still married or not, but like she has a partner of some kind, and now both of them are either going to have to identify her dead body or her body is also going to vanish and they're going to be like, fuck.
Yeah.
Not a comforting ending, nor should it be.
No, it's a bit of a downer there. It's yeah, I don't one of the things I've sort of learned as a critic, pausing here to let the audience members who know me laugh when I call myself a critic, is like really loving a movie is not the same thing as having a lot to say about it. You know, I really loved I Saw the TV Glow and I had a lot to say about it. I really loved Love Lies Bleeding as well. And I spent all of Pride Month trying to find a way to write something about it. And I just don't have any like I don't have coherent enough thoughts to share about this. And I liked this movie a lot. I was really moved by a lot of it, but like I feel like I'm running into a wall of stuff to say about it.
I think this film is also gonna go into the list with things like Nope and Tar, where it's like, you are a masterpiece. You have very important things to say. I can't look at you again without having significant amounts of therapy.
I really, one thing that I did sort of think is like, I had this thought, is there's a lot of very, very vivid, very unromantic depictions of grief in this movie. You know, I liked Gare's father admitting, like, I was really hoping the body that we were being brought in to identify was her, because at least then this would be over.
Yeah.
And like that's a horrible thought, and you know, but it feels like a very like someone who is in that situation. It feels like a thought that they would have, because like he's right, she is already dead. He just wants to start the mourning process.
It's relatable, and honestly, if I can get personal for a second, like my grandmother passed away earlier this year, and you know, I saw the urn that her cremated remains were in. I saw her gravestone, but I wasn't there with her when she passed. I didn't see her body afterwards, and so to an extent it's still you know, it's still hitting me, and grief doesn't go away on any kind of set schedule. There are no milestones to clear, and you know, sometimes there are days when you're just sad for no reason.
My mother passed away 11 years ago in 3 weeks. And I still have times when like I will think something funny, and I'll want to tell mom, and you can't. She's not there. And like it manifests in weird ways. You know, I bought Pacific Rim in the middle of October because like mom didn't get to see it, and I bought the Blu-ray so I could show it to her, and then like it arrived 3 days after she died, and I couldn't watch that movie for 5 years. I could not, like, turn on the first 5 minutes, I just bawl. And that's sort of the thing. Like, I think that when I say it's an unromantic depiction of grief, grief is one of those things that movies want to turn romantic, but it's not. It's weird and it's unpleasant, and it never really goes away.
The thing where they continuously have these shots of, like, Julia is standing in an open field and there's, like, a tinnitus kind of ringing in her ears, which I assume is the titular noise, ruido, whatever you want to call it. But God, I felt that to a degree I was not aware I could feel.
Mm-hmm. It is like that. It's like a weird ringing in the back of your head. And like the worst part about it is, like, you sort of get this sense from Garrett's father that, like, she's putting her life on pause to do this. A lot of people don't have that luxury. The movie doesn't dwell on it. She is a famous artist. So at least the fact that her daughter is missing got in the newspaper. I feel like a lot of the people in the movie didn't get that, which again means that we can throw class into the thing the movie brushes across.
Yeah.
Now here's Ellie about to talk about capitalism. Take a fucking shot, babes.
God, even like at the fucking protest, there's that shot of the mothers with their children. There's a crying baby at the protest, and yet in your gut the cops are not going to care.
Nope. ACAB.
Like, God, and protesters clawing at the gate, being pulled away.
Mm-hmm. It's, again, very, very unromantic. I feel like the necessity of a Hollywood formula is one of those things that just can't work for movies about actual social issues like this, because you always kind of have to imply that, like, one person can make massive change all on their own. I'm not going to name any names of movies because some people like some of the movies I would be naming. Whereas, like, in real life, this shit's complicated and it's hard work, and most of the time it doesn't. You're clawing for months and months and months to get, like, inches.
Months, years. The statement that we only wish there were more weeks in a month so they could have more time to be looking for their family.
Christ. God. Well, I think we're about ready to wrap up. I think that's a good runtime. Goodbye, everyone. I have to go cry. I have to go cry in the shower for about 45 minutes.
Yeah, so force with it.
I said already that I think the force is with it. I'm going to stand by that.
This is one of those times when I get conflicted about what forces with it means or not, but even if I don't like how it made me feel, for the very, very important messaging, for the clear care that the filmmakers have for this movie and this issue, and the fact that I hope it did something to raise awareness, and also that, goddamn, fucking great actors. Like, why aren't we giving women in Hollywood this kind of stuff to do? Why are we fucking sticking them in book club movies?
Yeah.
Forces with it. Ellie, you have pluggables?
I do have pluggables. As always, I am Ellie McConaughey. You can find me on Twitter, Blue Sky, probably Blue Sky increasingly, Letterboxd and Medium at LSR42. You can also find me on Tumblr at Football in Tuxedos, where apparently I'm going through another Supergirl phase. You can also find my podcast, The Biggest Night in Podcasting, where we talk about a randomly selected Oscar-winning film on YouTube and Spotify under The Biggest Night in Podcasting. We got an episode on The Sound of Metal coming up. Sound of Metal, not The Sound of Metal. Darn it. That's a great episode, great movie.
Degree 4, Riz Ahmed!
We do love Riz Ahmed. He's got the Riz.
As for me, I will ask that you keep the spirit of Star Wars alive by supporting artists through the Entertainment Community Fund, and by taking action to support anti-imperial and anti-colonial movements across the globe, partially by using links provided below, and by taking action in your community. And you can find me on the wider internet as La Femme Fictionale, including on YouTube, Twitter, and Tumblr, where you can also find the blog for this show. Our theme music is provided by Refractory Period, the two girls' one-beat synth-pop sensation. You can follow them on Instagram at Refractory Period the band. To further support this podcast, please subscribe to us on your platform of choice, leave reviews, consider joining Patreon, and share with your friends to boost our visibility. And now it's time to turn to the Chance Cube to decide where our journey takes us next.
Before you roll, I'm going to ask you a question. Is the movie that would be in slot number 2, like, an unpleasant movie? An unfun movie? You don't have to tell me what it is, just like...
Well, about that, Ellie, you have had more than 10 appearances on this podcast, so as a Knight of the Order of 6 Degrees of Star Wars, you are available to choose a degree, if you wish. But like I announced in the James Earl Jones episode, we're not doing typical degrees for our Halloween episode. I've picked 6 James Earl Jones projects for our Halloween show. I've randomized their order, and so you can pick a number. I can't guarantee it'll be the number you want it to be, but you have 6 James Earl Jones themed movies.
I'm going to pick 2 because I said at one point I was going to force you to roll a 2, so I'm going to use my force. Use the force to make you roll a 2.
Okay. You have forced me to roll a 2, so therefore our Halloween episode will be Grim Prairie Tales.
That's fun. That's going to be a fun movie. I can tell from here.
We'll see you all for our spooky Halloween episode, Grim Prairie Tales. Until then, stay safe, stay strong, stay beautiful, and may the Force be with you.